be quite disciplined about the whole thing. But I suppose we just try and speak to sort of various different sections of society and try and figure out why there is this crisis. I mean, the pandemic is an obvious contributing factor, but I just had so many sort of brilliantly insightful conversations with really amazing people. And I suppose, without sounding sort of too much of a cliche, I just hope it contributes, I guess, to an important conversation.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, this came about, didn't it, after you were filming in a hospital for one of your documentaries on a psych ward. What did you learn? Change your opinion, I suppose, about how you thought about it? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so many preconceived ideas, when you hear that somebody's having a really sort of tricky time or they've been through a mental health crisis themselves, and I think you can sort of make presumptions, not out of sort of malice or spite, but perhaps you haven't really sort of had a conversation with someone who's been poorly before. And the main thing I took away really quickly was no one's exempt. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what your circumstances look like or where you're from or who you are or da-da-da-da-da. It's like this can really affect any of us. So, yeah, sort of chipping away slowly at that stigma, I think it's probably really beneficial.
Yeah. And those preconceptions. What about, looking after your own mental well-being? As writing this book and working on documentaries like the one JJ mentioned, has that kind of changed your approach?
I've been really fortunate, actually. I can't say that I've ever had really unbearably difficult times. But I certainly wouldn't kind of swerve therapy or anything like that if I felt I needed it. I sometimes go into really sort of hostile environments and it can be sort of mad intense and really full on. So, yeah, definitely sort of urge people to go and have a chat if they think it's something that could help them.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've experienced so much with the documentaries. I mean, we've all seen it. We were talking about it before the show, weren't we?
She's fearless.
Very fearless.
I think it's stupidity more than fearlessness.
No, we love them, Stacey, we really do. And you've got a documentary out, which is out at the moment on iPlayer. It's called Stalkers.
Yes.
This is something that affects people like a lot more than you'd think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's much more common than I'd anticipated. I think when you look at the stats, it's like 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men.
1 in 5?
I know, it's bonkers, isn't it? And I feel like perhaps, I don't know, a couple of years ago, we sort of tended to associate it with someone who's public-facing. But actually, anybody can be stalked and anybody can become a stalker. And I think it kind of evokes you sort of asking questions, how do you find yourself in this situation? Because in isolation, what the perpetrator's doing isn't ridiculously terrifying, but when you sort of collectively look at their behaviour days, months, weeks or years later, it can be pretty crippling.
We've got a clip that illustrates that really